You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. You can't learn to fly just from a book. You learn from other pilots who know the tools, the skills, and the territory. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, episode number 93, International Aviation Marketing. Why, where, and how, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
93, huh?
Yeah, that's a lot of episodes.
That's dang near 2 years worth.
Yeah. So I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there in the aviation world sell more products and services.
Absolutely.
Internationally.
Yeah, ABCI. We do have an I in our name, right?
Yep.
We're international. So if you, wherever you are in the world, use the hashtag AvGeekMarketing. We look for those comments and tweets and remarks and other kinds of things, and we try to respond to every single one of them. So that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and so on. We're not doing Snapchat yet, heaven forbid. We need one more thing to do. But yeah, we're on most of the social media, and we do watch for those things. So if you have comments or anything else about this episode or any other, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Of course.
All right. So the big ideas for today's episode. Mainly we're going to be talking about reasons that U.S. companies might consider selling their products internationally. Now I know there's a lot of international aviation marketing that goes the other way, or that excludes the United States and just goes between two other countries and things like that. And those may be topics for future episodes, but we want to talk about what we know, right? Mm-hmm. And mostly what we're involved with in international aviation marketing is, other companies trying to sell products inside the United States, or U.S. companies that are established in the U.S. that want to expand their marketing elsewhere, right?
Of course.
Okay. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, we're going to talk about places to consider marketing your products. If you're thinking about testing an international market, or you want to expand your market for whatever reason, some places to consider for that. And then the third thing is methods that we have used successfully in one way or another with clients or for ourselves in international marketing.
So what do you mean places?
Places, regions, locations, continents, countries.
7-Eleven store?
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of like Australia,
fine.
Africa, or even maybe cities, maybe some regions and other things like that.
Antarctica?
I don't think there's a whole lot of market going on in Antarctica, but there might be. That's not one I've heard of, and that's not one in our slides.
Good.
For today. Okay.
Possibly good. Somebody will tell me.
Exactly. So, why might you sell outside the United States?
To make money?
To make money, right. The market in the U.S. has actually been improving a lot, but in some cases, some places in the world, it is growing faster for certain products and services. And there's been a lot of talk in the news about how there are emerging middle classes and upper classes in different parts of the world, including Asia and Latin America, probably most notably, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And, of course, there's always been a market in the United States and in Europe, and Canada and Mexico, of course, are always big items because they're connected to the United States. And Alaska has a whole, it's almost like international marketing because it's far, far away. And they have a culture of their own as far as aviation goes, right?
Yes, they do.
So all of those things are really cool. And depending on what you're selling, if you sell, for example, older aircraft or products and services for older aircraft, you might look at some of the markets outside of the United States, because you have, what we're looking for, the classic ideal situation in marketing is having lots of potential customers and not much competition, right? So you look at some of the data, and this actually is from JetNet about business jets sold at full retail or full lease transactions. What are the top 10 countries for that? In most cases, it's the USA, but those are followed by other countries. And they noted that Brazil was across the board a really good market for aircraft, and we know Embraer has a lot to do with that. But there's some different countries in here that you wouldn't expect to see, like Germany, Mexico, France, Switzerland. There were some surprises in here when I was looking at this data. These are really small countries with kind of relatively a lot of aircraft going on.
Yeah, but none of the particular countries you selected, there's a lot of revenues generated per capita.
That is true. And also, some of them may have tax advantages for aircraft, so they may not actually use the aircraft in Switzerland, for example, but that might be where the purchase is taking place, and so on. So, there's a lot that goes into these calculations. But if you sell older aircraft, you might look at some of those emerging markets where there is more activity going on in the market, where it might be slow here for a particular make and model of aircraft. And once again, you're going to want to look at all the data before you make a decision. But what follows from that, besides aircraft brokers who know a heck of a lot more about this than we do, because they look at the data every single day for every single make and model of aircraft that they sell, if you sell products or services for older aircraft, this is where those products and services are needed, because that's where those aircraft are potentially flying, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, some of those consulting services, some of those maintenance services, some of those maintenance products, avionics, upgrades, that are suitable for older aircraft, lots of things that might be really a good opportunity for you somewhere other than the United States. So older turboprops, same thing, not just the airplanes themselves, but also the services and products that go along with those. These are some good places to look for markets for that. Another reason you might look outside the United States is because of competition. So if you've got somebody that is eating your lunch in the U.S., you can do one of two things. You can either adapt your product or service so that it's different. You can outspend them in marketing, or you can look outside the U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are all options for you. So those are reasons that you might consider international aviation marketing. And again, we're not getting into a whole lot of depth here because this is a podcast. This is not a research paper, and this is not a case study, and this is not, a lot of things that you probably are going to want to use to make your determinations about what to do and how to do it. This is just sparking some ideas of things you might want to try in your marketing plan for next year, right?
And consider integrating.
Exactly. So this is just a starting point. There's a whole lot more research that you probably should be doing. And this is actually from the MRO market forecasts from their magazine. They have a nice slide share that we'll link from our website talking about the aircraft that are in use. And these are civil aircraft in use in, of course, North America being the largest, but Asia Pacific has a pretty large market share, Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa. So, if you're looking at Asia Pacific as an example of a growing market, a place where there's a lot going on, that might be a good place to look for places to sell your product or service.
Yes, it should.
Exactly. Okay, now all of this is pretty intimidating to people who have always done their marketing inside the United States and have never considered going elsewhere. So we're also going to talk about methods to consider, but one thing I want to really emphasize, and this is above and beyond methods, no matter what method you use, you're going to want to have some kind of a relationship with someone in or affinity for the place that you're considering marketing. And whether that is somebody that works for your company that maybe is from there or has a clue about the culture and about some of the things that happen there, or whether that is somebody that you can form some kind of a partnership or a joint venture with, or any number of things. There's always advisable to have a local that you know, like, and trust anywhere that you're considering doing
In
business.
some circles, these guys or girls are called handlers.
Yeah, handlers, or
Yeah, seriously.
or even partners. A company there that has a non-competing product or service, but that is willing to do some kind of a joint venture with you. That's often a good way to break the ice and get into a place that you're not familiar with. So, methods to consider, and trade shows, you may want to visit one of the trade shows in the location that you're researching, as a really good way to potentially identify some of those partners and opportunities and other kinds of things that we're talking about here. Because most of these relationships in a lot of these places, especially in Asia and Latin America, as far as I know, India is the same way. Most business transactions are very dependent on personal relationships. So, being there in person and shaking hands and having tea or whatever with people is incredibly important. Having a meal with someone is more important in most places in the world other than the United States, I would say.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that you've done a lot of business in Europe, right?
Well, I don't know about a lot, but I've started a company over there for some folks and spent a year playing with it.
Right. And
It wasn't aviation, but nonetheless, it was quite an interesting conceptually on what you have to go through to get to the point where you can have a meeting about a given topic.
mm-hmm.
It's not exactly as straightforward as it is here.
No. Did you go to any trade shows or conventions or events while you were there?
Yeah, I flew back to the States to do it.
Oh, great.
That's where they wanted me to
So you were
come.
doing the opposite, marketing here for there.
We were marketing there,
Uh-huh.
but they wanted me to come back here to get the latest
Ah, okay.
trade show information to take back over there.
Cool. Right. So, that's a good place to maybe test run some things in terms of finding partners, finding opportunities and other kinds of things, exploring a market and, seeing if the possibilities seem good, and acquiring some data and maybe starting some relationships with human beings in person.
Mm-hmm.
What a novel concept. Another thing that we have done a lot of is digital marketing, and we'll talk about that in more detail. Some of the things that can be done with digital marketing that are pretty exciting from an international marketing standpoint. And search engine optimization and website translation, which we're kind of lumping together for this purpose because it's about words on your website, however you want to put that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So trade shows, there are a lot of trade shows internationally. There are hundreds of them around the world in different areas about different topics. And, some of them have a military specialty, some have a civilian specialty, some have an airline specialty.
You have to really take a good look, because at last time I looked, about a month ago,
Mm-hmm.
at the time I think there were 265 aviation trade shows when you consider, and I mean there's probably more than that, but that's what I came up with for worldwide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And, again, you could spend all of your time and money going to trade shows and zero time and money getting anything done.
Oh yeah, I mean you couldn't possibly go to all those. In fact, if you can pick 2 to 4 and actually attend them and do them justice, you would be doing an outstanding job.
Right. Yeah.
So your selection process needs to be very detailed.
Right. I think for most of the small to medium-sized aviation clients that we have, we usually advise that they not do more than 4 trade shows, maybe 6 per year, just because of the amount of preparation and follow-up that has to go into doing trade shows well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know how they do 6.
Yeah,
Makes
the
me
larger
tired to think
organizations-
about it.
Yeah, if you've got two different teams going to trade shows, then you can do as many as you want, or if you've got enough personnel to do that. But if you've got the same people going to trade shows, um, we really don't recommend overextending on these and being very, very cautious. We'd rather have you do the heck out of a few than do a lot of them and do them badly, right?
Yeah, I knew of one larger company that did tag teams where every other trade show was with a different team.
Yeah.
And then they did I think 6 or 8 a year.
Right. And I've been part of that type of organization. Some companies actually have 2 entire booth setups.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. And 2 entire crews that alternate between shows, which is...
So if they do 6, that means that each crew is only actually doing one every 4 months.
Yep, something like that.
And that gives you plenty of time to do a campaign prior to and follow up.
Right. And once again, these are about building relationships. So this is not speed dating. You want to make sure that you've got the time to make the appointments ahead of time, meet with people, be relaxed, spend the time you need to while you're there, and then do the follow-up afterwards and not scrimp on the time and money required for all of that. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's trade shows. Let's talk a minute about digital marketing. Now, this is actually the ads manager for Facebook, which is probably the most detailed. And you can see some of the selections that you can make here. And you can make selections within a 1-mile radius of a location. You can do actually what they call geo-targeting, which would be for certain places like the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida. If somebody walks into that building and has location services turned on their mobile phone, they get what they call a geotag, so that when somebody walks into that location, they get served an ad, or they become eligible for your advertising marketing.
I don't want to sound too redundant, but those of you that listen to everything will hear this again, and that is that this approach with Facebook is the closest thing the individual or small company will ever get to accessing, quote, big data.
Exactly. So, and this can cost you as little as, $5 a day, depending on how you set up your ads and make this work. But for international advertising and international marketing, if you're wanting to target people in a specific country because maybe they have a tax situation that you can take advantage of because of some consulting that you do, or there's a particular product that you sell that is specific to a particular area, this is a wonderful way to not waste money on advertising you don't need.
And we've discovered through the various clients that Facebook is used for this sort of thing a lot more outside the U.S.
Right, and part of the reason is because phone calls are so difficult. You've got the time zone issues with doing business internationally. The digital marketing can be set for any time zone. So you're serving ads while you're sleeping, you're getting responses while you're sleeping. You can set up Facebook messaging advertising nowadays so that when someone messages your Facebook or in response to your ad, they get a specific set of messages based on an outline that you put together. There's lots of things that you can do with digital marketing internationally that really make it a whole lot easier to overcome some of those obstacles, like the language barrier, like time zones,
And if it makes you tired of thinking about doing this, just give us a call. We can help.
Absolutely. Yeah, our digital marketing packages do a lot of this in a done-for-you sort of way, so that we're setting this up for you. In addition to the location, of course, there's going to be other things that you want to select. So, maybe only men between the ages of 45 and 65 who have a college education, who have an income above X.
Pick a number you like.
Dollars or yen a year, whatever the currency is there. That have an interest in Mooney aircraft. There's lots of things that you can get really detailed.
And they also own a Tesla.
Exactly. And they're left-handed. Well, I don't know if they have left-handed, but
No, but I mean, they do
yeah.
have the information on where they live, how they live, what they drive. I don't recall sports they're interested in. There's so much, it just boggles the mind.
Right, that's exactly right. And you can exclude people from your advertising as well. So, let's say I don't want anyone who already is doing business with one of my competitors or something like that, or who already likes my competitor's page, something along those lines. So there's lots of selections you can make here that really make it a lot easier to do business internationally, and make it a whole lot easier for them to respond to you internationally without it being a pain in the neck for either of you.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk for a minute about search engine optimization. Once again, this is really high level stuff here. With our clients, we often get into discussions that last for hours on one of these topics, which is fine as well. Or, if they want us to handle it for them, that we try to keep that to a minimum and really respect your needs and wishes on that.
And just because she said those 3 words, don't go saying, "Oh my God, now we got it." She's not going to go deep because I won't let her.
Exactly, not in a podcast. Okay, so search engine optimization and website adjustments. If you are seeing something like this in your Google Analytics, where you've got a pretty large number of people from one country. So, let's say you have 4,000, almost 5,000 from the United States, but then you have 1,000 from the Philippines, which is actually a fairly small country. This is a time when you want to do some
analysis.
Yeah, and go, is there some reason that these folks are interested in my product or service? And we've had a lot of companies whose analytics we dig into every month. For one reason or another, find surprises like this, and say, "Wow, there might be something to this that we need to look into a little bit more carefully." So another thing that I would notice about this, and this is a page from Google Analytics, is that even though there's a lot of people visiting from the Philippines, if you look at the last column, the average session duration, people from the United States are looking at this website for 2 minutes and 7 seconds. 2 hours, 2 minutes and 7 seconds, which is actually a pretty decent amount of time for a web visit, right? People from the Philippines, though, are obviously not finding what they're looking for, so they're coming to the site, but they're only staying for 18 seconds. So if I saw this on a client's Google Analytics, and I did, my advice to them would be to translate a page into the language, and whether that's a full page, whether that's just a video, where you've got a translator speaking, or an audio where you've got somebody speaking, something like that. These people are not finding what they're looking for, or they're not able to understand it. So for some reason they are attracted to this product or service, but they are not finding that it's relevant to their needs, or they're not understanding what's on that website. And they're giving it 18 seconds and then they're off to find something in their language.
Or your language is not
else.
their primary. And
Yeah.
they say, the heck with it.
Yeah, this is too hard. I'll go get it somewhere else. So, this would be an opportunity potentially to explore, is there a product or service that we could deliver in the Philippines that would be interesting to these folks? And if so, is it worth the time and energy to maybe translate a page on our website and maybe see if we can increase the amount of time that people are spending, and maybe make connections with some people and see what it is that they're finding that they're interested in and why. There may be a market we haven't discovered yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting too, because you get all of these things and you get all the way down to the last slot on this particular page, and they're there for 3, almost 4 minutes.
Yeah, people in Kenya, there's not very many of them. So
not very many of them, but that means that they are looking at it seriously.
Right. So 117 people, the average of whom looked at this page for 3 minutes
and 53 seconds.
So either people in Kenya are very slow readers, or they are very interested, or they are very...
further analysis is required.
Yeah, exactly. And they're visiting a lot of pages per session, so they may be watching the videos or doing something else. But this definitely bears some closer scrutiny and potentially some experimentation to figure out what is going on here and how best to make money
respond
from
to
it.
it, yeah.
Exactly. How to sell more products and services based on this information. Okay. So worth looking into, and think about translation into languages. And once again, if you've got somebody on your staff that is volunteering to translate all your pages into Spanish, and this is what you're looking at on your Google Analytics, I would say don't bother, because none of these people speak Spanish.
That's right.
Okay? So, when you're thinking about paying for translation services and other kinds of things, first you want to look at where you're getting the traffic from, and is it worth it? So, in this case, I would think more about Tagalog. Is that the...
Yeah, for Philippines, yeah.
Right. Or, some of the languages in India, I know there's a bunch of them, Hindi and others. Indonesia, I'm not even sure what that would be. In the United Kingdom, what do they speak there?
Well, we thought it was English till we went over there.
Till we went over there, and we realized we don't speak the same language that they do.
Uh-huh.
Right. So anyway, some really interesting stuff that you can find out from digging into your analytics or having us dig into your analytics, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So let's talk about some ABCI clients that market internationally and some of the things that they do that we know about that are kind of interesting things to consider. So Ivan Boniface, he does the Aero Expo Panama Pacifico, largest Latin American expo north of Brazil.
Yep.
And a good opportunity if you were looking at exploring the Latin American market, which is booming. That is every year in April.
Panama.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, April, right.
In Panama. So consider that one. That might be a good way to dip your toe in, and also a really nice introduction into international marketing. Hal Stevens, he's up in Canada, and he does Sapphire Aviation Solutions. He's flying all over the world doing research on aircraft and other things for maintenance.
Related issues
And things like that. C&L Aviation, they do a lot of maintenance work. They're based in the United States, but planes come in from all over.
And they attend trade shows internationally.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. WX24 Pilot is an application, a weather application for pilots all over the world. And one of the interesting things about that is if you sell an app or if you sell software, of course there's no delivery problems with delivering it internationally, but Paxton has made some really interesting adaptations to his pricing and to the application itself, and where it gets data from, because of the fact that he sells internationally. So, obviously FAA weather data or NOAA weather data is not going to do any good for
the guy in South Africa.
Exactly. So, there's different sources that he's going to have to get weather data from.
And he does.
And he does. And in some cases, you have to adapt your product to be able to sell it internationally. So, whether that's worth it to you or not is a question that only you can answer.
Mm-hmm.
Airline Pilot Gateway. There's a huge market for flight training, and training pilots internationally, of course, to respond to the global pilot shortage.
Mm-hmm.
Francis Aviation, they do a lot of U.S. to Mexico, Mexico to U.S. Because of where they're located. They have a King Air Charter operation out of the El Paso area, the border area there,
mm-hmm.
and do a lot of international business. Expec Aviation, they do some really interesting refurbishing of simulators for flight training. So they have a similar situation to Airline Pilot Gateway in terms of market for their products and services and the things that they can do there. So lots of things going on, and every situation is different. A lot of people ask us what are some of the main things to think about in terms of international aviation marketing, and if we summed it up into those three things, you want to think about why, are you responding to a competitor, or have you discovered a market? Are you looking for another place to expand into because you've saturated the market in the U.S.? Lots of reasons to do international marketing. You want to look at where, in terms of where is it going to be easiest for you to do that, and you're also going to want to look at how. What are the methods you could use, such as trade shows, digital marketing, and website adjustments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever fine podcasts are distributed, right?
Yeah, they're not sold, so.
No, they're not. Wherever fine podcasts are sold. But please do subscribe on iTunes, and please do give us a rating. That helps a lot more people find our podcast and helps us do better marketing in the aviation industry and stop random acts of marketing. And having the industry do better is better for everyone, right?
Absolutely.
So spend less money on bad advertising and more money on good marketing, and everybody wins, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next week.
See ya. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.